All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here talking about real music in real time for a couple of real people out there just like you and just like me. All right, I'm going to be talking about Boston and Tommy DeCarlo, the truth about Boston and Tommy DeCarlo. And typically at the beginning of videos, I showcase new albums, and I got two of the DeCarlo albums right here. I'm going to be talking about things that pertain to both Boston and the situation with Tommy DeCarlo. As a lifelong Boston fan, I have to say, Boston as a franchise has been incredibly disappointing. Pretty much everybody I know has this album. If you don't have the debut album, then you're missing probably the greatest melodic rock debut album in history. You can play this from start to finish. Back in the day, and I'm talking even into the 1980s, literally every song from this album was played on FM rock radio stations. I worked at one of those stations. Every song was in rotation. Some got a little bit more airplay than others, but we didn't discriminate. In fact, we played most everything off of Don't Look Back, and then select tracks from this gem here, which quite honestly, after this album, the band didn't really put out the kind of music, the quality of music that they had prior to Third Stage. And I waited as a kid waiting, and then a young adult, I waited 5 years for that to come out. And Boston had lost a lot of its mojo, although Third Stage did really well. Switched record labels. MCA, never a good record label for a rock band typically, but people wanted to hear Boston, and there you go. Now, fast forward to Tommy DeCarlo. Keep in mind, Brad Delp passed away in 2007. He unfortunately committed suicide. So that's the way that ended. And the band embarked on a mission to find a replacement singer. Michael Sweet from Stryper was singing with Boston. I think there were other people considered for the job. But this man who worked at the Home Depot, who loved Boston his entire life, and who sounded a lot like Brad Delp, ended up getting the job. He wasn't a rock star when he started. I believe he's a rock star now. I think, like everybody else, you learn the tricks of the trade. And since becoming the lead singer, he was the lead singer. He wasn't just a singer in Boston. As Boston puts up, I believe, on their website, vocals. Okay, lead vocals is the proper title for Tommy DeCarlo. Now, why am I getting into this stuff? Because first of all, Tommy did a great job in Boston. The Boston mothership has been grounded, I think now, 5-6 years, something like that. And there don't seem to be any plans for 2024, whereas Tommy DeCarlo is out there trying to earn a living, playing music from his first album, Lightning Strikes Twice, which I think infers that it can happen again, meaning the sound that you grew up listening to. And this brilliant album that came out late last year, right around this time last year, it's called Dancing in the Moonlight. If you're a Boston fan, I'm just going to say it out loud, this right here. And these two albums, in my humble opinion, are better than anything Boston did post Third Stage. Now, I have a few bullet points here. So the Boston brand, I believe, is kind of on life support these days. I mean, who's talking about Boston? They're not in the news. There's no remastered Boston albums coming out, no lost tracks coming out. Not to my knowledge. Maybe it's in the works, but as far as I can tell, I mean, I scan the news each and every day, and I think the only person talking about Boston right now is me. Again, the band being inactive since 2018. Tommy sang lead vocals for Boston. Want to clarify that again. Tough to deny that too. Tough to say that he didn't, or he was just a singer in the band. No, he was the lead singer, not just vocals, but lead vocals. Tommy can only say he did vocals when he advertises. So there is a difference. I mean, you can be a backup singer. Hey, I could do vocals for Boston, right? I could. Not lead vocals, but I could do way in the background vocals where you can barely hear me, which would be the appropriate thing. Tommy is not Brad. Okay. So anybody who is thinking or inferring that I think Tommy is as good as Brad or that he's better than Brad, I don't think that. And I think Tommy will tell you that he's not better than Brad. Vocally, though, Tommy is closer to Brad than anyone else on planet Earth, unless someone is out there who we haven't discovered yet. So I think that's important. Many times, vocal replacements don't resemble the original singer as closely as Tommy resembles Brad. Now, some people have complained even that his physical appearance has taken on the characteristics of Brad. And maybe that's a legitimate criticism. However, okay, Tommy trying to be more of the rock star rather than the former Home Depot employee. I guess people expect Tommy to wear his old Home Depot apron out there on stage and look as clean cut and mild mannered. No, he's taken on the appearance of somebody who sings lead vocals in a rock band. I don't really have a problem with that. I know some people do. It's completely appropriate, by the way, to replace Brad. Again, Brad has not been here since 2007. But here's the deal with Boston. There has never been any urgency in keeping the Boston mothership afloat. Fans have dealt with this since 1978. 45 years of waiting for a new album and a tour. Now, I'm not saying they haven't put out albums. I'm just saying this is the usual Boston modus operandi, if that's the correct modi operandus, you know what I'm saying. They've only happened rarely, meaning that, yes, you get an album here, then you wait, then you get another album, and then it stops. As far as the touring goes, it's even more sporadic. Boston more or less became kind of like a Steely Dan for melodic rock fans, where the franchise would eventually come forth with new music from the studio, but there wouldn't be talk about a tour. And if there was, you know, it a lot of times was brief or it didn't materialize. I know there have been different incarnations of Boston. Was it Fran Cosmo was a singer for Boston? It used to be in Orion the Hunter. That's another New England thing. But quite honestly, Tommy DeCarlo came along at the right time and reignited Boston, gave them new life. And my complaint is here that the band should be generous to Tommy DeCarlo and say, look, obviously Tommy isn't a multimillionaire. Why not let him just do his thing, make a little bit of money, and keep the spirit, if not the whole franchise of Boston going? Why not? I mean, there's a good chance you might sell some back catalog if you've got a guy out there who is representing the music in the right way. I just don't understand the logic. Now, sometimes, you know, if someone is using the name, right, unauthorized, like he's not out there saying, I'm Boston, come see me. He's saying, you know, I used to sing a few vocals for Boston. So a naive person might come along and read that and say, oh, so this guy was like a backup singer in Boston. All right, well, I'll go check it out maybe. I'd rather hear somebody who sang lead vocals in Boston. See, everything today is about marketing and branding and getting the word out. And I know he already has a lot of fans, Tommy DeCarlo, and he deserves them. Typically, the comments are really positive about Tommy. There are a few people out there, understandably, who say, No Brad, no Boston. Okay. Keep in mind, Boston was kind of a nameless and faceless enterprise for many years. People who were very connected knew who Tom Scholes was, and they knew who Brad Delp was. All right, Tom Scholes is still alive, but that's kind of it. Unless you grew up with that, staring and reading this first album's liner notes, which a lot of us did, and this is what the band looked like back in the 70s when people were dancing in the streets of Hyannis, and you'll see other people like the drummer and guitarist Barry Goudreau. Just a great band, the great original band when they were playing out in clubs and doing the things that bands do initially. But then again, that paradigm shifted. When that album came out, the touring continued for a while. Don't Look Back came out, and it seemed things were going okay, but then things started to unravel quickly. So in any event, I don't know the entire complete history of Boston. All I know is I like the music. That's number one. Number two, I like Tommy DeCarlo, and I think he deserves better. He had a genetic predisposition for being the singer in Boston. Otherwise, people wouldn't have plucked him out of obscurity working at the Home Depot and had just given this guy a chance. And he's taken advantage of it. He's gotten better. He works hard. Again, he comes from a blue collar background. His backstory is a lot of hard scrabble, bad breaks, but he's trying to make the most of what he has now. And I think the band, the franchise, the people who are running the mothership over there at Boston Inc. should probably, let go and say, you know what? Let this guy make some money. Let him go out there. He sang lead vocals for Boston. You can't really change that. And why would you want to? This whole live and let live mentality. Apparently, when it comes to money and branding, all that stuff goes out the window. It just goes away. And I've seen this over and over again in this business where somebody comes along and does a great job, and they're not given the proper recognition because they're stealing someone else's thunder. And in this case, in the Boston franchise, which has been a wreck for 40-something years now, apparently it's just going to continue that way. So again, before I stop talking here, Tommy DeCarlo, Dancing in the Moonlight, spectacular album. Just if it came out a little later, it would be in my top 5 for this year. It's in my top 5 for last year. It came out December of 2022. But man, it's just such a great album from start to finish. And then the first release, which was just called DeCarlo, which kind of sounds a little more like, a one-name band. Maybe that's why he decided to go and distance himself a little bit. But DeCarlo does not sound like Boston, does it? No. In fact, I kind of like the band concept a little more than the individual artist concept. That's just me. It works better for branding. It always does when you give something a name like DeCarlo. I'm going to see DeCarlo tonight. So maybe some confusion there because Tommy probably wants to be known by his full name and not just his last name. So there you have it. The real truth about Boston and Tommy DeCarlo. By the way, folks, before I check out here, revenue is collapsing. Again, we're post-Christmas. Maybe they ramped some advertising up prior to Christmas. I haven't really been talking about money like I usually do, but to keep this channel going, I'm going to need more patrons. I'm going to need people to step up. I plan on purchasing more music in 2024 because overwhelmingly people have said they want me to continue to talk about new melodic rock on this channel. And I'm just going to focus on melodic rock. I may stray a little bit out of the genre here and there, but I'm not going to be doing blues or country. or smooth jazz or anything like that. So it's going to be like the stuff you see behind me, all of those CDs, pretty much all melodic rock masterpieces that you should probably own. And I'll be telling you about my top albums for 2023 very shortly. I'm waiting for a couple more of them to arrive before I do my top 20 countdown. So make sure you watch that video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. YouTube members, if you sign up for a YouTube membership, you're getting early watching privileges. So when I finish a video, I upload it. I typically designate a time when that video will be seen, but YouTube members get to see it as soon as that video uploads. All right. Thank you very much. Continue to pray for peace in the Middle East and around the world, and peace in your heart for this year and the coming new year.